Hello everyone. We're here today to discuss Amgen's prospects and the possibility of entering into biosimilars. We look at what has transpired in order to understand our decision and our question. Where exactly are we in our competitive landscape? Is there a possibility of biosimilars having any value with respect to our strategic goals? We also look at the possibility of Amgen's adaptability to take on new programs. And finally, we look at the judgment and our case for entering into the biosimilars or not. We also look at the options that we have if we decide not to get into biosimilars. We do know that our patents are going to expire. This is a multi-billion dollar industry. Our revenues are tied towards these patents, and we will have a dent in our profits in the near future. We know that Neupogen, Epogen, Neulista are all going to expire. We also have Aranesp, which has been unique discovery for us. Each one of them have had unique processes and a lot of intellectual investments from our teams. So where are we with regards to our competitors, and what does our landscape look like? We do know that Congress is banging on our doors to address the pricing issue. We've had multiple talks. We find that our drug pricing is tied to the value of the product that we deliver. We also know that it's tied to our development costs and our failures. We also know that in the future, the government is going to bring out enhanced due diligence for drug manufacturers who are manufacturing drugs outside our country. And we need to make our supply chain resilient, safe, and give them the protection that it requires so that they can do their work as per the law. We also know that across the board that companies transfer most of their revenue losses for non-blockbuster drugs onto blockbuster ones. We've been doing the same. It's no doubt that it's the blockbuster drugs that fund our entire activities to this day. We also know that the capital investments that are coming in need to be higher and higher with regards to gaining more competitive talent. We also need to look at the social landscape where the drugs that we deliver of the utmost value are by prescription only. This method has allowed us to track our after sales services and the ability to bring out better products for the future. We are unaware that if the social organizations and the people at large are aware of the hazards of biosimilars, this is a key for them to understand if there are side effects. They could be due to the pharmaceutical substituting for our drugs. Morphology has been complex, and this is where we thrive. And this is where we gain our competitive advantage and our strategic advantage. Biosimilars only have to pick up from us. The unique process that is tied to the blockbuster drug helps us maintain a competitive advantage and ability to create more patents. The environmental scenario is that most companies, including ourselves, are tied to a continuous supply of drugs that need to be identified through the molecules. This is an extraneous onus on the development teams. It's also why we have such a heavy R&D budget. It's also a slow process. We can't hurry it up. For failure at this stage itself could mean that although we save later on costs, if we fail at this stage, we'll be able to save a higher amount of costs. As we know, patent protection is what keeps our wheels turning, and losing our patents is going to be almost an arrow in us. We also need to understand that the more and more scrutiny that comes upon our practices, we might be considered of gold plating our drugs. And we do not need to seem that we are not spending every single amount of dollars that we get to improve, expand, and enter into new therapeutics. So, biosimilars and us, we know that there are very meager margins once we enter into biosimilars. This is an industry which thrives primarily in competition, and they only have the end goals, end molecules in sight. They will need extensive proving, but do we need to enter into another set of trials having proven our own drugs? We thrive on our innovation capacity, and a biosimilar does not have full innovation capacity. They have an end molecule in sight. There's an upfront medical investment required even for a biosimilar. Although less, we believe that the amount that we put in gains much more value in the long term as we give an all round service even after sales. Most of all, we would be relegating ourselves into a red ocean market where, in a price war, we could end up losing not just our margins but our shares in the market. So, how does that fit in with our adaptability? Do we need to improve upon ourselves? There's always scope for improvement. So, let us know where we stand here. We have a proven safety of patients. Our drugs are the golden standard, or having passed through all the trials dictated by the FDA. They are groundbreaking discoveries in the therapeutic areas. Yes, some may have come before us, but we have built good drugs for the future. Furthermore, we have the highest talent, and this talent allows us to build better drugs for the future. We also look at educating the governments as an opportunity against biosimilars because they are not thoroughly proven in the market. We have to lease excess capacity that we have, and this will improve our margins. Strong connections with clinicians has resulted in us having great long term advantages. We know our weaknesses is the drug development time. Our discovery process is slow, and we are inflexible to change at times, including myself. Biosimilars will be better than our drug. That is a clear and present danger, and we need to look at government's support to these drugs without them having clear understanding of what the after effects might be. Their low cost is what gives them power, but in the future, if the drugs are recalled, it could be to our advantage as well. So my suggestion at this stage is, after viewing the scrutiny of biosimilars and looking at our position internally and externally, I would suggest that we look at staying the innovative course and not to muddy ourselves in the biosimilar market, as we may lose both talent and competitive advantage for the future. And I will now give some time to my colleague for him to introduce the steps that we might take in this regard.
Based on the identification of various issues, we would like to propose a three-step model for creating a strategic plan. The first step is having a competition. The fundamental change in biomanufacturing trends can come into play with the biologics manufacturing capacity sharing arrangement. A new model in pharmaceutical manufacturing, one based on co-optation, which is a mindset that contains both cooperation and competition. When the product for which the initial capacity was intended do not proceed through clinical development, that existing product will not fill the site. The combination of a pipeline delivery gap and the subsequent improvement in grams per liter yields require an alternative solution to fill capacity. This is the genesis of the concept of sharing capacity. It is also a strategic partnership model. A joint venture company can be formed which will get the contract from parent companies for technical development and manufacturing services. With the motivation of covering operating expansion of staff and depreciation for the manufacturing assets, the business case for developing a partnership for sharing capacity can be made. The arrangement would require joint capacity planning in a long-term deal that is 10 to 15 years. There will be no direct competition in the service being shared, namely biologics manufacturing capacity. The risk associated with lot production would also be less. The second step is having a contract manufacturing organization. As we have recently witnessed with COVID-19 vaccine, the process of developing new drugs can be swift with adequate funding, support, and interest. A shortened development time for biologists isn't just about speed to market for maximizing profit. It can also save lives. Partnering with a CMO is one way to expedite the process. As a CMO with experience in biologist already has the personnel and equipment needed on site, they accelerate the biologist development process for discovery stage pharmaceutical companies by providing lab scale formulation for preclinical testing. Their team of researchers can also perform pre-formulation assessments, bioavailability modeling, and formulation approach comparisons. CMO determine the feasibility of a number of different approaches in parallel, improving the odds of a successful formulation and reducing the time and cost needed in the early stage formulation. So here is the selection criteria for identifying the CMO. So first one is the confidentiality and compliance. It is better not to outsource its procurement to an emerging market supplier unless the supplier is thoroughly vetted and is renowned in the industry and has established system in place that guarantees confidentiality. Irrespective of the scale of work in a chemical facility, strict adherence to worker safety and compliance with environmental and health regulations are the foundation that a production facility should be built upon. For material quality and delivery, we have to screen many CMOs beforehand, build a stable from the chosen few, after establishing a history with them through experiences drawn from low-risk outsourced projects. Then technical assessment of a CMO and their fit for a project is a key criteria. Knowledge of modern organic synthesis, process development, pilot plant, or manufacturing operations. FDA and ICH guidelines for APIs are skill sets that a procuring manager must have. Furthermore, it is the skill set of the technical staff that works on the client's chemistry and their experience base that becomes more important. And last, assessment of material quality to be made primarily on standard availability analytical data. Once a project moves deeper into development, procedures to prepare starting materials and analytical testing methods to assess their purity becomes more defined and robust. With all this, we can easily select a suitable CMO. The last step is having a merger and acquisition in biosimilars. Invest in just the asset rather than take on the entire company so that assets can be resolved if a project fail. Also, form partnership for assets creation. Uh, Additionally, we have to safeguard the proprietary products. So here is one example from Amgen regarding this biosimilar M&A. Amgen and Watson Pharmaceuticals formed a collaboration in December 2011 to develop the commercialize on a worldwide basis several oncology antibody biosimilars. Under the agreement, Amgen assumed primary responsibility for developing, manufacturing, and initial commercialization of the oncology antibody products. Watson contributed up to 400 million in co-development cost over the course of development, including the provision of development support and shared product development risk. In addition, Watson contributed its expertise in the commercialization and marketing of products in a specialty and generic drug market. The collaboration product was sold under a joint Amgen-Watson label. Watson initially received royalties and sales milestones from product revenues. The collaboration did not pursue biosimilars of Amgen's proprietary products. This process of M&A can be continued in the future. So here is the final strategic roadmap where we have to focus on our core business of biologics. We should do the market assessment of biosimilars. We have to explore the capacity sharing model and continue the M&A in biosimilar. We can also work with contract manufacturing organization to improve efficiency. With all this, we conclude our three-step model for creating a strategic plan, which will guide Amgen to move ahead with continued dominance in pharma market. Thanks.